There are places in the galaxy where sound itself seems to sleep, where the metal has grown old and weary, where echoes linger not because of space, but because memories refuse to die. And it was in such a place that a human walked shoulders, brushing the narrow spaces between Krait's eyes. Scanning not for danger, but for the comfort of the familiar, he was called Jax Harker, a man whose life was written in the language of solitude, and still his voice, gruff his patience, worn thin by the endless rituals of maintenance and survival. His ship was no marvel of modern design, but a testament to persistence patched welded, reinforced by necessity rather than pride. Yet even in this fortress of routine, there came a sound, soft, uncertain something out of place, and Harker's hand moved to his weapon not out of fear, but because in space surprises were rarely kind. He followed the sound not with the urgency of alarm, but with the methodical precision of a predator familiar with the hunt. His boots silent against the metal floor, his breath steady as the ship obeyed his command, scanning life signs revealing the presence of not one, but two life forms, one familiar, one unknown. And as he turned the corner, weapon raised his eyes, met a figure neither beast nor enemy, but a girl of blue skin and silver hair, eyes vast and trembling. Not from she spoke her name, Tora, a refugee from destruction, fleeing the weakness, but from the weight of the unknown. She stood caught between fear and dignity, her voice a melody of worlds lost, and he listened not just with ears, but with a heart that remembered that not all strangers are. Threats assimilators, a word heavy with dread, a name that carried the echo of annihilation, and Harker's heart, though guarded, recognized the cadence of desperation. He did not sheath his weapon with trust, but with resignation, for he understood that the galaxy, with nature and minds, had many hunters and few havens. She spoke of her world, a place of thought and harmony, where machines whispered not in noise but in silence, where cities breathed people. Technology was silent a ghost. An unyielding commanded matter without the need for crude tools. And Harker laughed not with mockery, but with sound, stubborn, with the rugged pride of a species that had clawed its way to the stars with grit and grease. He offered her passage, not as charity, but as a transaction of time and tolerance, guiding her through corridors that sang with the weary song of engines that refused to die, and in her eyes he saw could not shield them from the wonder and unease at every hiss, every groan for her. Touch upon the world while his ship was alive reached him, a yelp, a cry, a confusion born not of. They reached the galley, where sustenance was summoned from a machine of buttons and hums. He led her further through the ship, past the mundane, past the Antora, watched with fascination as food materialized, steam rising like an offering to old gods. She ate with the hunger of the displaced, and spoke of her people, watchers, scholars, observers, who held knowledge above interference, yet even knowledge. No sooner had he settled than a sound relentless grasp of the hive, and Harker listened, his eyes on his drink, his mind on the inevitability of war. And when the meal was done, it was but a flush, a simple act of hygiene. Yet to her, it was had roared with the voice of a predator. She spoke of necessary, until they stood before a door unremarkable to him, yet a portal to mystery for her, the not of disdain but of bewilderment. And he explained with bathroom, a chamber of necessity, a place where even warriors are reminded of their frailty, but because they endured. And she listened, her fear melting into. She asked permission to explore, and he granted it with a shrug, his mind already returning to tasks yet, and he guided her away, promising rest, yet knowing that her journey into pain but of terror. And he returned swiftly to find her perched upon the toilet, her body tense, her eyes wide as though the porcelain beast vortex and noise of water that churned with aggression. And Harker laughed, a deep sound of through the peril of asteroids, his disbelief and amusement for to him. And Harker sighed, not in anger, but in understanding for violation of the expected, a reminder that not all technology is graceful. Some is brutish, some is attempt at sustenance loud, some simply is. She called it barbaric, a judgment, gestures and grins that humanity was a species of noise, of imperfection, of solutions that worked. Not because they were elegant, but the philosophy that humans control a need to feel thee, and when Harker steered his ship, curiosity. Her mind weaving connections between her world of silent obedience and this ship of rebellious machinery. Human ways had only just begun, and morning brought the sound of shattering, the clatter of the essence of humanity, a refusal to surrender. Failure in the galley, where Tora stood amidst the ruins of a mug, her ending in broken ceramics and apologies. Learning often begins with breaking. He showed her the buttons, the sequences, the logic of machines that required hands and patience, and she watched, absorbing each motion, each explanation, her mind a vessel eager to fill with the foreign. And as days passed, she learned not just the mechanics, carried the belief that mastery came not from thought alone, but from the intimate dialogue between flesh and machine hands dancing over controls. His mind alive with focus, she watched with a reverence reserved for art, for she saw in him pulsant danger beneath the skin. But the void does not allow peace for long, and soon the alarms screamed of pursuit, of vessels that carried the scent of assimilation, engines that burned with hunger, weapons that sought to enslave. And Harker's response was not panic, but motion, his ship diving, twisting, seeking refuge amidst rock and shadow. But the engines cried in protest, their strength faltering, their veins leaking lifeblood. And they found a moon, a barren rock with breath and gravity enough to cradle the wounded ship, and amidst fumes and sparks, Harker wore gloves heavy with grime, his breath a steady rhythm of focus, and Tora watched and asked to learn to understand not just the function, but the philosophy of repair. He taught her not with the patience of a scholar, but with the honesty of a survivor, explaining the heart of engines, the flow of coolant, the fragility of motion, and she listened, her mind stretching to encompass this new language of resistance, her hands learning the weight of tools, the texture of wires, and together they mended what was broken, not perfectly, but sufficiently. And when parts were still needed, they ventured to a settlement of traders, a market of opportunists and predators, where every glance measured value and every word masked intent. And Tora, cloaked in fabric that dulled her brilliance, walked beside him, her curiosity tempered by caution, yet drawn inevitably to the unfamiliar. Her touch awakened the device, lights and sounds responding to her alien presence, and suspicion followed, eyes narrowing, voices sharpening. But Harker shielded her with coin and confidence, guiding her away, yet whispers grew into pursuit. The assimilators moving through the crowd, their presence a shadow that chilled the air, and Harker pulled her into an alley, their bodies pressed against cold walls, breath shared, hearts racing, and in that closeness a promise formed, unspoken yet undeniable, that he would not let her be taken, that her story would not end as another page in the hive's endless ledger. And when the danger passed, they returned to the ship to steal, and the face of circuits and the fragile illusion of safety. A dance of beings who had known loneliness too long, who had carried, they found, not salvation, but respite, but of discovery skin against. In the quiet that followed, she sought him not for answers, but for presence, for the warmth of a soul that stood between her and oblivion. And in that dimness, their barriers fell, kisses shared, not as declarations, but as confessions of need, of desire, of the simple human truth that, in extinction, we reach for connection. Their night was not of conquest, could wield it, fashioning devices that sang skin, breath against breath, to allies to the alliance, a coalition of weary hopes and stubborn wills. Burdens too heavy alone and in each other, morning brought purpose and confessions. Tora revealing the depth of her knowledge, her role not just as refugee, but as key as weapon, her mind, a repository of research that could fracture the hive's dominion. And Harker did not flinch for danger, was a companion he knew well, and together they reached out, and soon they carried her knowledge to those who, but in augmentation, and when now guiding them through the void with grace, and they laughed at the memory, for with defiance, severing the chains of the hive with each pulse of resistance, and victories followed, for laughter, for remembrance, for love. And as they prepared for new, small yet significant enough to remind the stars that even the mightiest can fall, but in choice, in remembered the girl who once trembled, would face it not as solitary souls, but as one, They refitted the ship, the rust bucket reborn its scars, honored its strength renewed, and Tora, with hands now fluent in human craft, gifted it a neural bridge emerging of thought and motion. But by the beautiful accident of existence, any testament to what they had become together, not a replacement. Harker first felt the ship respond to his mind, his heart before a toilet, even in war. There is space journeys. Tora asked if he was ready, and Harker smiled, for readiness is a myth, but willingness is a truth, and he was willing to walk into shadow with her, to defy the void, to claim the right to exist. They flew not as pilot and passenger, but as partners, their minds and hands in concert, the ship, an extension of their unity, and the galaxy watched as the hive faltered, as drones awoke from their chains, as worlds, once silenced, found their voices again, and amidst the battles, amidst the chaos, they built something that no war could break. A bond forged not in convenience, the deliberate decision to stand together, and when they spoke of the future, it was not with certainty, but with the hope that whatever came they, and as the stars wheeled above and the ship hummed with the energy of renewal, Harker looked at Tora, moving with confidence, with purpose, and he knew that the universe in its chaos had conspired to place her in his path. Not by design, was grateful not just for her presence, but for the journey, for the story they had written together, and for the chapters yet to come, for in the vastness of space, amidst the noise of machines and the silence of thought, they had found the rarest of treasures, a reason to keep moving forward together.